I woke up to voices that weren't mine, not dreams, real voices. Two of them. Somewhere near my bed, my eyes were still heavy from the anesthesia, but I heard every word clear as day. I mean, nobody chooses item intake, one woman said. She had that fake bright customer service tone, like she smiled too hard when she talked. It's where appraisers go to die. The man she was with gave a low laugh. Well, it's official. Went through earlier today. Bethany Harrow signed it during the pre-op window. My stomach clenched hard, not from the gallbladder surgery, but from that name. Bethany Harrow, my manager, my project lead. The same woman who'd smiled at me last week and told me to focus on recovery. Don't worry about a thing. I couldn't move yet, but my brain was firing fast. Auction house, department transfer, item intake. My ears were ringing and my mouth felt like cotton. But I knew what they were talking about. Item intake, receiving was the bottom of the barrel. The loading dock, the sorting zone, cold floors, and colder attitudes. I'd spent 2 years on the tech floor building an AI tool that could detect undervalued collectibles from photos. Trained it, refined it, demoed it. Bethany called it the future of appraisal. And now, apparently, I'd been transferred to warehouse duty. During surgery? Before we go further, share which city or country you're watching from. I blinked hard, trying to clear the fog. A soft mechanical beep came from my monitor. The voices stopped. "She's waking up," the woman whispered. Footsteps shuffled. Then the door clicked shut. By the time I could sit up an hour later, they were long gone. 3 days later, I was eating Blangello when a nurse with box braids leaned over and said, "Hey, just so you know, that transfer? It was approved. HR logged it the same day you were under." I stared at her like she was speaking another language. "What transfer?" She hesitated like she wasn't sure if she'd screwed up. Then she handed me the patient folder. "To receiving. Says effective immediately." That's when it hit me. My AI project, the one I built from scratch, the one I was scheduled to present to the exec board next quarter, was no longer mine. Bethany had pushed me out while I was unconscious, had the paperwork timed during surgery so I couldn't fight it. The timing was too perfect, and now I was headed straight to the one place appraisers went to disappear. I got home the next morning with surgical tape still tight across my belly and a prescription bag clutched under my arm. My apartment smelled stale, like old coffee and laundry I'd forgotten in the dryer. I dropped everything on the kitchen counter and opened my laptop. There it was. Subject, Department Transfer Confirmation, Item Intake, Receiving from HRadmin@rosenfieldauctions.com. A 2-line email, no explanation, no apology, just a dry confirmation that I'd been reassigned to receiving operations, effective immediately. I sat there in my hoodie, blinking at the screen. Cold sweat rolled down my ribs. I scrolled down, hoping for a note from Bethany. A call. Anything, nothing. I grabbed my phone and hit Danny's contact without even thinking. She picked up right away. "Hey, you okay? How'd the surgery go?" "Fine, clean removal. Listen, did something happen at work?" There was a pause. "Marlene, you saw the transfer, didn't you?" "So it's real?" I asked. "I thought it was some mix-up. I never signed anything." Another pause. Then Danny's voice dropped low, like she didn't want anyone overhearing. "Bethany presented your demo to corporate on Monday, while you were in recovery." I stood up so fast the kitchen chair screeched against the tile. "She what?" "She said you passed her the reins," Danny said. "Told them you'd asked to step back, that you wanted less pressure while you healed." "That's a lie." "I know," she said, "but it was slick." She said it with concern, like you were overwhelmed and needed space. "Everyone bought it." I pressed a hand to my forehead. "Did you tell anyone that wasn't true?" Danny hesitated. "Not yet. I didn't know what was going on. The whole floor's been whispering. They think you, couldn't handle the pressure." I couldn't speak. My throat went dry. "And get this," she added. "Brian from IT, he's working in your old cube now, setting up your system. Bethany's got him syncing the image library to the valuation module. She's pushing for live testing by next week." So that was it. Just like that. 2 years of design, testing, sleepless nights, handed off. No credit, no title, no input. Brian didn't even work in our division. I rubbed my eyes. "So she just cut me out? While I was drugged in a hospital bed?" "She's calling it a departmental optimization," Danny said. "Said it's for your health. Makes her sound generous." I paced hard, heart pounding. "Danny, they didn't even ask." They just transferred me. I'm sorry, she said quietly. Bethany's got the execs eating out of her hand right now. She framed it like she was doing you a favor. I stared at the wall, not saying anything. My hands were shaking, but I forced my voice calm. Don't talk to anyone else about this, okay? Not yet. Marlene, she started. I mean it. She didn't argue. Okay, but listen, whatever this is, don't let it break you. I ended the call. The rest of the day passed like static. I didn't cry, I didn't rage. I just moved on autopilot, printed the HR doc, packed a clean backpack, and laid out a pair of black work pants, the same ones I'd worn 3 years ago when I started as a junior appraiser. I set my alarm for 6, double-checked the address listed under New Work Site Receiving. It was the warehouse basement. I climbed into bed while the sky was still bright and stared at the ceiling fan spinning slow and useless above me. The whole thing felt like a setup, but I had no proof. No paperwork trail, no record of a request I never made. Just one name at the center of it all, Bethany Harrow. And tomorrow, I'd be showing up to a job I didn't apply for, in a department built to bury people like me. By 7 a.m., I was standing in front of a gray metal door marked Receiving Authorized Only. The hallway smelled like dust and floor polish. The air was colder than I expected, like someone cranked the AC just to mess with people. I pushed the door open and stepped into a basement-level dock that looked more like a morgue than a workplace. Concrete walls, metal shelving, crates stacked 6 high, everything dim and gray under flickering fluorescent lights. A guy in a faded hoodie and cargo pants walked over, holding a pair of industrial gloves and a handheld scanner. You Marlene? Yeah, I said. He shoved the gloves into my chest. Chuck, I supervise this pit. You scan, you sort. That's it. If it's cracked or moldy, flag it. If it's clean, shelf it. Don't overthink. I stared at the scanner. There's been a mistake, I said. I'm not supposed to be down here. Chuck scratched his beard. You got a badge that says receiving, don't you? I never approved this transfer. Take it up with God or HR, he muttered, walking off. I stood there for a second too long, trying to figure out if I should push back harder, but he was already gone, barking at someone unloading a pallet. So I pulled on the gloves. The next 6 hours were hell. My job was to unbox, scan, and tag incoming items. Some were returns, others were unclaimed estate pieces, or flat-out donations. A chipped tea set, a crusty lamp wrapped in newspaper, books with torn covers. Everything smelled like old furniture and mildew. The scanner was slow and half-broken. The tagging gun jammed every 20 minutes. I was freezing. My surgical stitches were tugging every time I bent to lift something. No one talked. No music, no windows, just the steady beep of scanners and the low hum of the freight elevator. Around lunch, I checked my phone and saw the company newsletter. Bethany's name was in the headline, Breakthrough in AI Appraisal. Harrow leads the charge. My chest clenched so hard I almost dropped my food. There was a full paragraph about how she'd championed innovation with her forward-thinking approach to valuation technology. No mention of my name, not one damn word. I turned off my phone. By 5:30, my arms were shaking, and my back felt like I'd been hit with a steel pipe. Chuck waved me off with a nod and disappeared behind a stack of crates. I didn't even ask where to clock out. I just walked straight to the elevator, rode it up to street level, and limped to my car. It took everything I had not to scream during the drive home. I got through the door and dropped my bag on the floor. My hands were blistered through the gloves. I peeled off my clothes like they were covered in oil, stepped into the shower, and cranked it as hot as I could stand. That's when it hit me, all of it. The surgery, the switch, Bethany's fake concern, Brian sitting in my chair, using my system, the gloves, the dust, the silence. I slid down the wall of the shower and sobbed until the hot water ran cold. My chest hurt from holding it in all day. This wasn't some clerical error. It was deliberate, a hit job with HR signatures. Bethany didn't just steal credit. She exiled me. And for the first time, I realized she thought I'd stay buried. The next morning, I was back in that basement, trying not to throw my back out over a pallet of cracked lampshades. My hands were sore, my stitches itched like hell, and every beep of the scanner made me want to put my fist through a crate. But around mid-morning, something caught my eye. It was a wooden box labeled Donation Scrap, half torn at the corner. The manifest taped to the side said, Damaged Ceramics, Lot 47F. Nothing else. No sender name, no condition report. Just a scribbled signature and a received stamp dated 2 days ago. I peeled back the lid and froze. Inside was a porcelain vase wrapped in museum-grade foam. No cracks, no chips, not even dust. The base was stamped with a gold mark I knew well. Limoges. Ayrıtı yennutre tonurgar. This wasn't junk. This was a 5-figure piece. Minimum. I looked around. No one was watching. Chuck was down the aisle helping someone unload a wardrobe. I slid my phone from my pocket and snapped 3 quick photos. Item, label, manifest. Then I sealed it back up and scanned it as the tag said, scrap. Over the next few days, I kept my head down and my eyes open. It started popping up everywhere. High-end clocks logged as wood debris, silverware labeled bent utensils, a pair of vintage Leica cameras marked non-functional electronics. Every one of them showed up with either missing documentation or scribbled over notes. Some had no manifest at all, just blank tags and a fake barcode that rerouted to Salvage General. I brought it up to Chuck once, careful not to sound suspicious. Hey, quick question, I said. This says scrap, but it looks expensive. He didn't even look, just said, don't look too hard. Just scan and sort. But shouldn't there be a... Chuck turned toward me and cut me off. I don't write the tags, Marlene. I just make sure the dot keeps moving. If the label says junk, it's junk. I nodded, slow. Right. Got it. But I didn't get it. Not at all. That night, I opened a new folder on my phone. Intake. Weird. Started logging every crate that felt off. One photo of the label, one of the item, date, tag, description. Every entry felt like a splinter sliding under my skin. On Thursday, I unboxed an oil painting with a thick gold frame. It had the artist's name signed at the bottom. I Googled it right there behind the shelves. Norman Rockwell, 1947, the real thing. Worth hundreds of thousands, maybe more. The tag said, rejected merchandise, surface damage. Only damage I could find was a smudge on the glass cover that wiped clean with my sleeve. I scanned it in like the label told me to. But I took 5 photos before I sealed it back up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling again, my heart buzzing with that edge of a cliff feeling. I wasn't just tossed in the basement, I was meant to be down here. Whatever was happening with these items, it wasn't random. It was buried, tucked away in the coldest corner of the building, behind 6 flights of stairs and a broken elevator button. And someone wanted it to stay that way. By the second week, I had a system. Every time I spotted a crate with mismatched tags or missing documents, I logged the barcode and description in my Notes app, snapped a photo, then entered it into a spreadsheet when I got home. I didn't have full access to Rosenfield's inventory tools anymore, but the public auction records? Still searchable. I started cross-referencing everything. A set of scrap Tiffany candlesticks from Tuesday, sold 4 weeks later for $8,000 in a private collector event hosted by our internal acquisitions team. A bent silver tray from last Friday showed up in Bethany's Instagram story behind a glass case, tagged as a featured lot in the Manhattan preview. And the Rockwell? Gone. No mention in the main catalog. But I found it listed on a third-party site linked to Rosenfield's executive-only auctions. Private login, by invitation only. Price tag, $400,000. I didn't say a word. Not to Chuck, not to the other floor guys. Just kept working, scanning, logging, building the file one quiet shift at a time. But people noticed. One of the warehouse guys, Danny, leaned over my shoulder when I lingered too long over a crate marked discard. You cataloging junk for fun? Just slow with the scanner, I said. He didn't press, but he looked at me different after that. A few days later, I got sloppy. Took a photo with the flash still on. Chuck was behind me before I even turned around. You taking selfies with the scrap, Marlene? It's just, this label's wrong, I said, trying to play dumb. No manifest. Chuck squinted at me, chewing a toothpick. Then he leaned in, voice low. Curiosity here isn't smart. I stared at him, heartbeat in my throat. I'm not doing anything wrong. I didn't say you were, he said, walking off. Just said it's not smart. That night, I pulled up Bethany's corporate calendar on my home laptop. I still had the old link bookmarked from before the transfer. Her public-facing schedule was all clean. Meetings, presentations, innovation strategy blocks. But I called Danny anyway. You still have back-end access? I asked. For now, she said. Why? Can you check Bethany's actual badge logs? I think she's been in the basement. I need to know how often. Danny didn't ask why, just texted me 20 minutes later. She's been there every week, always between 6 and 7 a.m. None of it's logged in her calendar. Why? What's going on? I didn't answer, because I already knew. She'd been coming down to receiving before anyone clocked in, tagging what she wanted buried, pushing rare items through a quiet system nobody paid attention to. The loading dock wasn't just a trash chute, it was a filter, and I was the one she dumped in to keep it running unnoticed. I looked back at my spreadsheet. 17 items, all labeled scrap. All appeared later in boutique or executive-only sales. Every single one tied to a crate I handled personally. This wasn't just shady, this was a coordinated side channel, a way to skim the best pieces off the top before they ever hit the public floor. The longer I stared at the data, the louder the truth rang in my ears. Bethany wasn't just stealing credit, she was stealing inventory, and she thought I'd never notice, because she thought the basement broke people. The next morning, I didn't clock in. I took the elevator past my floor and hit the button for the executive lounge. I'd only been up there twice before, both times for tech briefings. That place always felt like a different world. Espresso machines, glass walls, people in tailored clothes who smiled like they were paid to. Bethany was there, laughing with a group near the coffee bar. Tan blazer, hair pinned just right, holding a tiny spoon like she was starring in a commercial. I walked straight toward her. The voices around her softened as I got close. She turned, smiled like she was greeting an intern. "Marlene," she said brightly, "everything okay down in receiving?" "I need to talk to you," I said. My voice was low but sharp. "Now." A few heads turned. Bethany blinked like I'd just tracked mud onto her marble floor. She gave a polite chuckle. "Well, I'm just in the middle of—" "You used my name to push a transfer I never approved, while I was under anesthesia." Bethany's smile didn't move. "I'm sorry, what?" "Don't play stupid," I said. "I didn't sign anything. I didn't authorize the department switch. And yet, somehow, HR has a form with my name on it." She glanced at the people watching. "Marlene, maybe we should talk privately." "No," I said. "Let's talk here." Silence fell around us. People shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Bethany set her spoon down. "You've been under a lot of stress," she said, voice soft and concerned. "Honestly, we've all been worried about you since the surgery. It's not uncommon to feel unsteady." I laughed, short and hard. "So that's the angle? Call me unstable so nobody listens?" Her face didn't flinch, but her tone turned clipped. "I did what HR allowed. The transfer was signed off by compliance, using a signature you knew I couldn't give." She raised her chin. "HR approved it. You were out of the office. The company had to move forward." A man in a navy suit stepped between us. Doug, the VP of sales. Hey, ladies, let's not do this here, all right? Sounds like a paperwork issue. I'm sure it's just an internal mix-up." I turned to him. "My name was used without my consent, and my project, the one I built, was stolen and presented by someone else." Bethany let out a soft sigh, folding her arms like she was being patient with a child. "Your project needed leadership. You weren't in a position to handle the next phase." I felt my face burning. "You're lying. I never asked for time off. I was in the hospital for 48 hours. Her voice dropped, sharp as a knife. "Stick to your new job, Marlene. It suits you." Every person in the cafe went still. Nobody said a word. I stared at her, biting the inside of my cheek so I wouldn't snap. Doug cleared his throat. "All right, let's circle back later. This isn't the forum." Bethany turned back to her espresso like she hadn't just stabbed me in the chest in front of 10 people. I walked out without another word, rode the elevator back to the basement in silence. My hands were shaking and my throat felt tight, but I didn't cry. I just kept replaying her face, calm, polished, smug. She thought this was over. She thought I'd go back to tagging crates like a good little grunt, but I wasn't just angry now, I was focused, and I had nothing left to lose. After that day in the cafe, I went quiet, not submissive, strategic. Every shift in receiving, I worked like nothing was wrong. Scanned, sorted, smiled when Chuck barked orders. But the second I got home, I opened the laptop and built my case like a second job. I started cross-referencing everything. Crate ID numbers, intake timestamps, internal sales records, public auction listings, anything I could dig up. It took weeks, but the patterns came fast. Dozens of high-ticket items written off in receiving were showing up later in private buyer invoices. They'd disappear from inventory as scrap, then resurface 2 months later with a new tag, a new lot number, and a big fat sale price, usually under Bethany's department. A $22,000 vintage Cartier watch, a Civil War sword listed bent, unsellable in receiving, sold to a private client in DC for over 50 grand. A mid-century painting we marked water damaged was displayed in the executive suite the following month. And the kicker? None of it was ever in the public auction logs. I needed more. So I started digging through archived internal emails. The company's legacy system still had old routing folders. I scoured every back-channel chain I could find between appraisal, logistics, and executive sales. That's when I hit gold. Bethany had sent 3 emails over the past year using the same phrase, alternative clearance processing. Each time the note was vague. Please expedite through ACP or route via ACP to avoid storage delays. But the attached crate numbers? They matched my list. She'd been rubber stamping these diversions personally. I backed everything up to a flash drive, then 2, then cloud. I wasn't getting blindsided again. Still, it wasn't enough to go internal. Bethany had friends up top. She could flip it into some asset flow error or pilot program excuse. I needed outside pressure, so I found the name of a federal consumer fraud investigator, someone who'd handled nonprofit resale scams and under-the-table art deals. I created a burner email, no name, no rant, just data, 74 items, all with matching crate tags, all marked low value in receiving, all sold privately through internal channels. Subject line, unreported auction diversion, Rosenfield Auctions. I hit send. 3 weeks passed. Then one morning, Chuck rolled in early, phone in hand, shaking his head. You hear about the audit? I played dumb. What audit? Compliance, surprise inspection, external. They're flying in Monday. I acted confused. That's weird. Chuck didn't look convinced. He just said, could be nothing. Could be somebody's ass. I knew exactly whose ass it was. The next day, the company buzzed like a kicked hornet's nest. HR called emergency department huddles. Directors booked back-to-back meetings. I overheard someone in the hallway whisper, federal, like it was a dirty word. Danny texted me one line. You did something, didn't you? I didn't answer. I wasn't celebrating yet. I'd seen how fast Bethany moved when cornered. But I had the one thing she didn't count on. 3 months in the cold, forgotten basement gave me eyes she didn't think I'd use. Now the light was finally coming in. Audit day hit like a controlled explosion. 2 black sedans pulled up at 9 sharp. 4 people got out. No name tags, no smiles. Just clipboards, navy blazers, and steel-toed boots. The kind of people who didn't come for a chat. Word spread fast. By 10, half the company was pretending to work while watching the monitors in the break room for movement. I positioned myself at the receiving dock, clipboard in hand, flash drive in my back pocket, paper logs printed, highlighted, and stacked. Chuck gave me a look when he walked past. You know something? I shrugged. I know where the good stuff's buried. 2 of the auditors came down to receiving around 10:30. One was a short woman with a tight bun and a sharper jaw. The other guy didn't say much, just pointed and took photos of everything. The woman looked over at me. You work down here? Yeah, I said. Marlene Torres, transferred 3 months ago. She nodded. You handle intake? Scan and sort, I said. Then I stepped forward and handed her my stack of records. But I've been tracking irregular crates, she blinked. You've been what? I didn't flinch. Crates that came in with mismatched tags, high-value items listed as scrap, no manifests, items I later found sold under internal executive auctions. She started flipping through the pages, her eyes narrowed by the second. Why track this yourself? Because I built the tool they're using to filter inventory, I said. Then they transferred me here without consent during surgery. I noticed things they thought I wouldn't. Her partner stopped photographing and walked over. A few minutes later, Bethany arrived. Heels clacking, smile tight, voice sweet as poison. Is there a problem here? She asked, standing between me and the auditors like she could block the sun. The woman didn't answer, just held up my sheet. This yours? Bethany glanced at it, then tilted her head. Number that's a receiving employee. Marlene? Wasn't she demoted recently? She looked straight at me. I believe she's been unstable since her procedure. That did it. The guy with the camera raised an eyebrow. Unstable? Bethany nodded calmly, hands folded. Yes, Unfortunately, she's had some trouble adjusting to her new role, and it seems she's taken a personal grievance and turned it into a story. I stepped forward, voice flat. You used my name on a transfer form while I was unconscious. And I have documentation showing you've authorized alternate clearance paths for items marked scrap that later appear in private sales. You can call it unstable if you want. Facts don't care. Bethany's face didn't change, but her eyes went sharp. This is a disgruntled former analyst with an axe to grind. The auditor didn't even blink. Great, then we'll verify it. That's when things tipped. They asked to see the receiving logs, not the digital ones, printed manifests. Chuck shuffled in with a stack, hands sweating, muttering that we didn't always get physical copies on diverted crates. Two auditors started cross-referencing live inventory with the tags in my files, and it unraveled fast. Crate after crate had mismatched item lists. Photos didn't match descriptions. Multiple pieces tagged as scrap had been logged upstairs with full appraisal photos and item numbers, but not until weeks after they left our floor. They asked to see the ACP records, alternative clearance processing. Bethany stuttered something about inventory flexibility and volume overflow. The auditors didn't buy it. Then came the death blow. One of them asked, "Why do your badge logs show visits to receiving at 6 a.m. on dates you have no calendar entries?" Bethany opened her mouth, then closed it. I didn't say a word, just stood there and watched. By 2 p.m., the CEO showed up. Elliot Granger, 60, gray suit, tight jaw. He hadn't been on site in months, but now he was marching through the hallway like a man who smelled smoke in his house. He pulled Bethany aside, but they weren't quiet enough. "You didn't report the use of ACP routing in Q2, he snapped. "And now I've got external investigators crawling through the basement with a damn whistleblower spreadsheet." Bethany tried to talk. He cut her off. "Boardroom. Now." An assistant ran past, whispering about an emergency session being called. People started whispering in corners. Chuck disappeared into his office and didn't come back out. Someone from HR peeked around the corner and vanished like a ghost. The audit wasn't over, but the air had shifted. Bethany wasn't skating past this one. A half hour after the CEO stormed in, someone from legal tapped me on the shoulder. "Mr. Granger wants you upstairs." I followed her through 2 security doors, up the executive stairwell, and into a boardroom that looked more like a courtroom. Long table, thick blinds, untouched water bottles lined up like props. Bethany sat at the far end, arms crossed, blazer perfectly buttoned. Elliot Granger stood near the screen, phone in hand, jaw tight. The rest of the board, 8 members in all, were already seated. Most of them looked irritated. A few looked nervous. Elliot pointed to the end of the table. "Sit. Walk us through what you found." I opened the laptop they'd set up for me, plugged in my flash drive, breathed once. Then I pulled up the spreadsheet. "I've been in receiving for 3 months," I said. "Since my transfer, I've documented 74 high-value items that were logged as scrap, donation, or unclaimed. Most of them were tagged with incorrect or incomplete documentation." I clicked to the next tab. "Here's a list of those items alongside their public and private sale records, dates, prices, buyer tiers." I zoomed in on one. This Norman Rockwell piece was marked as rejected surface damage. It showed up in an internal boutique sale 6 weeks later. Final price, $400,000. Someone near the end muttered something under their breath. I kept going. This vintage Cartier watch was marked as non-sellable. It was later logged through the ACP path, alternative clearance processing, which until this week had no formal tracking system in place. I clicked again. Here are internal emails sent by Bethany Harrow. In them, she gives direct approval to route items through ACP. Phrases like expedite, skip standard review, or hold for internal placement show up repeatedly. Bethany leaned forward, voice sharp. "That doesn't mean I did anything illegal." ACP was a gray zone protocol for offloading unsellables. It was, "You used it to reclassify high-ticket merchandise," I cut in, "without alerting compliance, without standard review. You personally authorized dozens of these crates, and I can show the individual crate IDs tied to each email." I brought up a chart, one that mapped crate ID to sale number, date, and private buyer name. The room went still. More than half of these buyers had early bidder access. A few of them, I highlighted a name, are LCs registered to real estate firms Bethany owns partial interest in. Bethany barked out a laugh. "You're reaching." I've never even seen those items. That's inventory's job. I looked her dead in the eye. You logged into receiving 15 times in the past 3 months, always before 7 a.m., never listed on your public calendar. On 6 of those days, crates were reclassified after your visit. One of the board members, a woman with short blonde hair and 3 rings on her right hand, spoke up. Are you saying she was rigging auctions? Yes, I said. The system flagged specific categories. Bethany's team marked the items scrap before they could be appraised. She used ACP to pull them from the public pipeline, then redirected them to internal boutique sales or private buyers she had financial ties to. Another board member whispered, That's fraud. No, Elliot said flatly. That's felony fraud. Bethany stood up. You're all just taking her word for this? She's a receiving clerk who's been obsessively cataloging crates since her demotion. I looked around the table. She was demoted because she was building this exact system, Elliot said, cutting her off. She didn't just bring us a theory, she brought receipts. Bethany's voice wavered, just slightly. This was a department process. I didn't design the ACP system alone. I brought up the final slide. Every ACP-labeled crate with a price tag over $20,000, every single one, was signed by her. She went quiet. Nobody else did. Legal asked for copies. 2 board members asked for printed breakdowns. Elliot told an assistant to clear the rest of the day. Bethany just sat down, staring at her water bottle like she could drown in it. And for the first time since that hospital bed, I felt the ground shift in my direction. 6 weeks later, I stepped off the elevator onto the 11th floor and barely recognized the place. New carpet, frosted glass walls, clean lines, warm light, quiet voices. The door with my name on it, Marlene Torres, director of appraisal tech, was cracked open, waiting. I pushed it wide and walked in. Same view of the city, but now with standing desks, dual monitors, and a welcome packet on my chair. The same chair Brian from IT had parked himself in when Bethany tried to pass off my system as hers. Now it was mine, officially. Company press release, newsletter headline, public credit restored. They even called it the Torres Protocol. No flowers, no parade. Just a badge that unlocked a better floor, and a cold email from legal confirming Bethany Harrow had been terminated for cause. The words pending criminal investigation were the closest thing to justice I'd seen in writing. I sat down, hit the power button on the keyboard, and let the hum of the CPU settle under my skin. My old team trickled in throughout the day. A few gave me careful nods like I might still be radioactive. A couple offered quiet congratulations. Danny brought coffee and didn't say I told you so, which I appreciated more than I could say. Around noon, an interoffice envelope showed up on my desk. No return name, just a handwritten note inside. You changed things down here. Chuck. I stared at it for a second, smiled once, then slid it into the drawer. Bethany could have shared the credit and played it clean. If she had, none of this would have unraveled. But greed made her sloppy. Arrogance made her loud. Exiling me gave her the basement, but it gave me access. That's what she never understood. As I rebooted the Torres protocol for the first official test cycle under my name, the screen lit up blue, clean, and steady. I leaned back, crossed my arms, and smiled. Turns out, the trash room's where I found the truth.